I have lived long enough to notice something most folks miss. The ones who get overlooked, the plain ones, the quiet ones, the ones nobody fights over, they often carry the most strength. Not the kind that makes noise. The kind that holds a family together when everything else falls apart. I saw that truth proven once, in a parlor in Wyoming, on a summer afternoon that changed 4 lives forever. Silas Hollis stood in the center of his parlor and announced, loud enough for the whole county to hear, "Pick any daughter you want." 3 men, 3 daughters. The room smelled of tobacco spit and desperation. Charlotte stepped forward first, silk dress catching lamplight. Rosemary followed, chin lifted, smile practiced. Martha stayed where she was, behind them, where she always stood. The first man chose Charlotte before Silas finished talking. The second pointed at Rosemary like picking a horse at auction. Nathan Sawyer did not move. The clock ticked. A fly crawled across window glass. Silas shifted his weight, sweat darkening his collar. Nathan crossed the room, past Charlotte, past Rosemary. He stopped in front of Martha. His hand calloused, dirt still under the nails, reached for hers. "This one," he said. Silas's mouth fell open. No sound came out. If this opening caught your attention, drop a comment and let me know where you are watching from today. And if you have been enjoying these stories without subscribing, we would be grateful if you joined our little community. It helps us keep sharing these tales with folks like you. The wagon lurched over a rut. Martha grabbed the seatboard, knuckles white against weathered wood. Nathan Sawyer had not spoken since they left her father's house. 2 hours, maybe 3. The sun hung lower now, bleeding orange across the ridgeline. Dust coated her lips. She licked them and tasted grit. He held the reins loose in his hands. No hurry, no force. The horse, a gray mare with a notched ear, plodded steady up the grade. Martha studied him from the corner of her eye. The scar on his chin. The way his jaw stayed set. Sleeves rolled to the elbow, showing forearms roped with tendon and old sun damage. He reached behind the seat without looking. Pulled out a canteen. Held it toward her. She hesitated. "Ain't poisoned," he said. His voice was deeper than she expected. Rougher. Like something that had not been used in a while. She took the canteen. The water was warm, tasted of tin, but she drank anyway. Her throat had been dry since her father started laughing. Nathan pulled out a cloth bundle next. Cornbread. He broke it in half, gave her the bigger piece. She ate. He ate. Neither spoke. The wagon crested a hill, and the valley opened below, miles of brown grass, bending in the wind. A thin creek catching the last light. Mountains blue and distant beyond. "Why?" Martha said. He did not answer right away. Chewed, swallowed. Watched the road. "Why me?" she pressed. Nathan pulled the reins. The wagon stopped. "Sitimam." The mare snorted, shook her head. He turned to look at Martha for the first time since leaving. Really look. His eyes were gray. Tired, something broken behind them that he had learned to work around. "Had a wife," he said. "Sarah. Beautiful. Real beautiful." He paused. This land took her anyway. Martha's chest tightened. "I got 2 young'uns up there," he continued, nodding toward the mountains. "Their ma's been gone 2 years. They don't talk much no more. Don't trust nobody." He looked away. Tried hiring help. "Nobody stays Too far out. Too quiet. I need somebody who won't leave. The wind picked up. Grass hissed against the wagon wheels. I need somebody who won't break, he said. Not somebody pretty. Somebody strong. He turned back to the road, clicked his tongue. The mare started walking. Martha stared at the mountains ahead. Somewhere up there, 2 children waited. Children who had stopped talking, children who did not trust, and she was supposed to reach them. The house sat at the base of the mountain, like something that had given up. Martha saw at first, through the gap in the pines, a 2-story structure of weathered timber, a porch running the length of the front, a stone chimney climbing the east wall. It should have been handsome. It should have felt like home. But there were no curtains in the windows, no flowers in the boxes beneath the sills. The rocking chair on the porch sat crooked, one runner broken. Weeds grew through the steps. Nathan pulled the wagon to a stop. The mare let out a long breath. Here we are, he said. Martha climbed down before he could offer his hand. Her boots hit the dirt. She stood there, looking at the front door. It hung slightly open. A strip of shadow beyond. Nathan walked past her, up the steps. The broken rocking chair creaked when his weight hit the boards. He pushed the door wide. Martha followed. The smell hit her first. Stale air. Dust. Something sour underneath old milk, maybe, or food left too long. She stopped just inside the threshold, letting her eyes adjust to the dim. The parlor stretched ahead. A cast-iron stove sat cold and dark in the corner, ash spilling from its grate onto the floor. Dishes covered the table. Tin plates crusted with dried food. Cups tipped on their sides. A pot with something black and hardened at the bottom. Clothes scattered across the furniture. A child's shirt draped over a chair back. Small trousers bunched on the floor. A rag doll with one button eye missing lay face down near the hearth. On the mantel, a pendulum clock had stopped. The hands pointed to 3:47. Martha's gaze moved to the wall above the stove. A photograph in a hand-carved wooden frame. A woman with light hair and a soft smile. Eyes gentle even in the stillness of the image. Sarah. Nathan stood near the back door, watching Martha. His shoulders had dropped. Something in his posture had collapsed since they crossed the threshold. A sound. Small. From the kitchen. Martha turned. A girl stood in the doorway to the back room. 7 years old, maybe. Thin, brown hair pulled back in a braid that had come half undone. She wore a dress too short for her, the hem frayed, the sleeves ending above her wrists. Behind her, a smaller shape. A boy. 5, perhaps. He gripped his sister's skirt with both fists, his face pressed into her back, one eye peeked out. Watching Martha. The eye was wide, afraid. Neither child moved. Martha's throat tightened. She swallowed. Ellie? Nathan said, his voice low. This is Martha. She's going to be staying with us. The girl Ellie did not look at her father. Her gaze stayed fixed on Martha. Flat, measuring. You ain't our ma, Ellie said. The words hit Martha square in the chest. No anger in the child's voice. No grief. Just fact. Cold and clean as winter stone. Martha took a breath, lowered herself. Her knees touched the wooden floor, dust pressing into the fabric of her dress. She brought herself to the girl's eye level. "I know," Martha said. Ellie's jaw tightened. The boy behind her whimpered. "Then what are you doing here?" Ellie asked. Martha looked at the child, at the braid coming loose, at the dress too small, at the eyes that held too much for 7 years. "I don't rightly know yet," Martha said. "Reckon we'll figure it out." Silence. The wind pushed through a crack somewhere. The house groaned. "She ain't coming back," Ellie said. Her voice did not waver. "Ma ain't coming back." "I know that too." Ellie stared at her. The boy, Sammy. Martha remembered, pressed his face harder into his sister's skirt. Then Ellie took Sammy's hand and pulled him back into the kitchen. The door swung shut behind them. Nathan exhaled. A long, ragged sound. "They ain't been right since," he said. "Either of them?" Martha stood. Her knees ached from the hard floor. She looked at the closed kitchen door, at the scattered clothes, at the stopped clock. "Where do I sleep?" she asked. Nathan pointed to a small room off the parlor, a bed with a bare mattress, a washstand with an empty basin. Nothing else. "Was the sewing room," he said. "Before." Martha nodded. She walked to the doorway, looked inside. Dust motes floated in the last light from the window. "I'll fetch your things from the wagon," Nathan said. He left. The front door closed behind him. Martha stood alone in the silent house. She could hear the wind outside, the creak of boards. Somewhere in the back, the murmur of children's voices, Ellie talking low, Sammy crying soft. She crossed to the mantel, looked up at the photograph. Sarah's face gazed back, kind, patient, gone. Martha reached up, touched the frame. "I ain't here to take your place," she whispered. The clock stayed silent. The house offered no answer. Night came slow. Martha lay on the bare mattress, staring at the ceiling. The quilt she had found draped over the parlor chair, Sarah's quilt, she knew covered her now. It smelled of cedar and something faint beneath. Lavender, maybe. A woman's scent. Darkness pressed against the windows. The house settled around her. Boards creaking. The wind dying down. Then she heard it, crying. Soft. From the children's room above, Martha sat up. The quilt fell away. Sammy's voice, thin and breaking. Then Ellie's low, soothing, repeating the same words over and over. Martha could not make them out. She stood. Her bare feet touched the cold floor. She walked to the doorway, looked up the narrow stairs. The crying continued. Ellie's voice kept its rhythm, patient. Tired. The voice of a child who had done this too many times. Martha's hand found the banister. She put one foot on the first step. Then she stopped. Too soon. She knew it. They would not want her there. They would not trust her there. She stood on that step for a long time, listening to the sound of two children holding each other in the dark. When she finally turned back to her room, the crying had stopped. But the silence that followed was worse. And somewhere in that silence, Martha heard something else, a third sound. So faint she almost missed it. Footsteps. Outside. On the porch. Martha held her breath. The footsteps stopped. She moved to the window, pressed her back against the wall. and peered through the gap in the curtain. Moonlight fell across the porch boards. A shape moved there, tall, broad-shouldered. Nathan. He stood at the railing, looking out at the dark valley. His hands gripped the wood. His head was bowed. Martha watched him for a long moment. Then she stepped back from the window and returned to her bed. Whatever burden he carried out there in the dark, it was not hers to intrude upon. Not yet. She lay down, pulled Sarah's quilt to her chin, closed her eyes. Sleep came slow, and when it did, she dreamed of children crying in rooms she could not find. The rooster crowed before first light. Martha's eyes opened. Gray light seeped through the window. Her body ached. The mattress was thin, the frame unforgiving. She pushed herself up, feet finding the cold floor. The house was silent. No movement from upstairs, no sound from Nathan's room at the back. She dressed quickly. The same calico dress from yesterday, she had only two, and the other was still packed in the small trunk Nathan had carried in. She twisted her hair back, pinned it without a mirror. The kitchen waited. Martha stood in the doorway, surveying the damage. The dishes from weeks, maybe months of neglect. The cold stove. The pot with its blackened contents. The sour smell that had seeped into everything. She rolled up her sleeves. The stove first. She cleaned out the ash, carried it to the pit behind the house, returned with kindling from the woodpile by the back door. The matches were in a tin on the shelf, half empty. She struck one, but the flame caught. She fed it carefully, small sticks first, then larger pieces, then a split log. Heat began to rise. The pump in the corner took effort. The handle was stiff. The mechanism protesting, but water came eventually. Rust-colored at first, then clear. She filled a pot, set it on the stove to heat. The oats she found in a burlap sack in the pantry. Weevils had gotten into part of it, but most was still good. She measured out enough for 4, added it to the heating water, stirred with a wooden spoon worn smooth by someone else's hand. The honey was harder to find. She searched 3 shelves before discovering the jar behind a tin of lard. Wildflower honey, the color of dark amber. She opened it. The smell rose sweet and heavy. By the time the oatmeal was ready, the sun had crested the ridge. Light poured through the kitchen window, catching the steam rising from the pot. Martha heard them before she saw them. Footsteps on the stairs. The creak of the 3rd step from the bottom. Then silence. She did not turn around, kept stirring. Let the smell fill the room. "What's that?" A small voice. "Sammy." "Hush." "Ellie." Martha reached for 4 bowls, set them on the table, ladled oatmeal into each, drizzled honey on top, more on the 2 smaller portions. "Breakfast," she said, still not turning. "If you want it." Silence stretched. Martha waited. A chair scraped. Wood against wood. She turned her head just enough to see Sammy had climbed onto a seat. His eyes were fixed on the bowl in front of him. His small hand reached for the spoon. "Don't," Ellie said. Sammy's hand stopped. "Smells funny," he said. "That's honey," Martha said. She moved to the stove, began cleaning the pot, gave them space. "From wild bees, up the ridge, I'd guess." Sammy's nose twitched. "Ma used to put honey in stuff. Martha's hand stilled on the pot. That's so. Mm-hmm. Sammy picked up the spoon. Ellie grabbed his wrist. I said don't. Martha turned. She looked at Ellie. The girl's jaw was set, her eyes hard, but her gaze kept flicking to the bowl in front of her. Her throat moved. You don't have to eat it, Martha said. But it's there if you want. She turned back to the stove, kept her hands busy, scrubbed at the blackened pot, though it would need lye and a full day's soaking to come clean. Behind her, she heard the scrape of a spoon against tin. Then another. She did not look, did not want to see which one broke first. It did not matter. The sound was enough. Nathan stood at the barn door, pitchfork in hand. When he smelled it, he stopped, set the fork against the wall, walked to the window that faced the house. Smoke rose from the chimney. The kitchen window glowed with lamplight. And through the glass, he could see shapes moving. Martha at the stove, the children at the table. His chest tightened. 2 years. 2 years since that kitchen had smelled like food. 2 years since anyone had cooked for his children. He had tried. In the beginning, burned oats, raw beans, biscuits hard as river stones. Eventually he had stopped trying, fed them what he could. Jerky, canned peaches. Whatever did not require the stove he could not make work. He watched Martha move. She was not graceful, not delicate. Her hands were quick and sure, but there was nothing pretty about the way she worked. She simply worked. Not like Sarah. Sarah had danced in that kitchen, had hummed while she cooked, had made everything look easy, effortless, like the food appeared by magic and her hands were merely there for show. Martha moved like someone who knew work, someone who had scrubbed floors and hauled water and never expected anything to be easy. Nathan watched his son eat, watched his daughter resist, then give in, watched the steam rise and curl against the window glass. He stood there until his hands started to ache from gripping the window frame. Then he picked up the pitchfork and went back to work. The afternoon sun slanted low when Martha heard the commotion. She was hanging wash on the line sheets she had stripped from the beds. Shirts she had found piled in corners. Undergarments she had scrubbed until her knuckles cracked. The rope sagged under the weight. A squawk. High and sharp. Then a child's voice. Come back. Come back here. Martha dropped the shirt in her hands. Followed the sound around the side of the house. Sammy stood in the yard, arms outstretched, chasing a yellow blur that zigzagged between his feet. A chick, newly hatched. From the look of it, the henhouse door hung open behind him. He must have left it unlatched. Get it, Sammy cried. His voice cracked. Tears streaked his dusty cheeks. It's gonna run away. Martha moved without thinking. She circled wide, cutting off the chick's path toward the open field, crouched low, waited. The chick darted left. Martha shifted. It darted right. She anticipated, moved her hands slow, palms open. Don't grab, she said, her voice calm. Let it come to you. Sammy stopped, stared at her. His chest heaved. Crouch down, Martha said. Make yourself small, less scary. The boy hesitated. Then he squatted, mimicking her posture. Now hold your hands like a bowl, Martha said. Loose, not tight. Sammy cupped his small hands together. The chick slowed, cocked its head, took a tentative step toward the warmth of the boy's fingers. Don't move, Martha whispered. The chick hopped. Once, twice. Then it walked directly into Sammy's palms. His face split into a grin. Gaps where teeth had fallen out. Dirt smeared across his nose. Eyes bright for the first time since she had arrived. I got it, he breathed. You got it. Martha stayed crouched, watching him cradle the chick against his chest, watching the fear drain out of his small body, replaced by something simpler, something good. A shadow fell across the yard. Ellie stood in the doorway of the house, arms crossed, face unreadable. But she did not call Sammy away, did not tell him to put the chick down, did not speak at all. She just watched. And in the hard line of her mouth, Martha saw something give, just a fraction, just enough to notice. Then Ellie turned and went back inside. The door stayed open behind her. 2 weeks passed. The house began to change. Martha had scrubbed the floors until the wood grain showed through years of grime. She had washed every dish, every pot, every cup. She had beaten the dust from the rugs and aired out the curtains and polished the windows until light poured through clean glass for the first time in years. The children watched her work. Sammy followed her around the yard now, asking questions about chickens and horses and why the sky turned colors at sunset. Ellie kept her distance but no longer disappeared when Martha entered a room. Small victories. Martha counted them like coins. On the 15th morning, she found the chest. It sat in the corner of the upstairs hallway, pushed against the wall beneath a window that faced the mountains. Martha had passed it a dozen times before. But today, for reasons she could not name, she stopped. Cedar. Old, the corners worn smooth. A brass latch, tarnished green, that clicked when she lifted it. The smell rose first, cedar and lavender, faint now, fading. Beneath it, something else soap, maybe, or the ghost of a woman's skin. Martha's hands trembled as she lifted the lid. Fabric, folded neat and careful. A woman's Sunday dress, pale blue with white buttons. A shawl, crocheted in a pattern Martha did not recognize. Beneath those, a Bible with a cracked leather cover, pages edged in gold that had worn away to nothing. And at the bottom, wrapped in muslin, a quilt. Martha pulled it out, unfolded it on the hallway floor. The pattern was called a log cabin. She recognized it from her grandmother's house. From the quilts that had covered her bed as a child. Squares of calico in every color, red and yellow and blue and green. Each one cut precise and stitched with care. The center of each square was dark black or deep brown, and the logs of color built outward from there. But the quilt was not finished. The last 3 rows hung loose. The squares only pinned in place, the backing not yet attached. A needle still threaded with white cotton pierced the corner of an unfinished block. Sarah had been working on this when she died. Martha sat back on her heels. Her fingers traced the stitches tiny, even, perfect. The kind of stitches that came from years of practice. From patience, from love. She gathered the quilt in her arms, carried it downstairs, out the front door, into the sunlight. The porch steps were warm from the afternoon heat. Martha sat on the middle one, spread the quilt across her lap, and studied the unfinished edge. She could not match Sarah's stitches. She knew that already. Her own work was rough. Functional, she had learned to sew out of necessity, not art. But the quilt needed finishing. The work had been started. Someone should complete it. Martha picked up the needle, found where Sarah had left off, pushed the point through the fabric. Her first stitch was crooked. The second was too long. The third pulled the fabric in a way that puckered the corner. She kept going. The sun moved across the sky. Shadows shifted on the porch boards. Martha's fingers cramped, relaxed, cramped again. She worked without looking up, without stopping, without thinking about anything except the next stitch and the one after that. A board creaked. Martha's hands stilled. She did not turn around. Ellie stood at the edge of the porch, one hand on the railing. Her braid had come half undone again. Her feet were bare, dusty from the yard. "That's Ma's," Ellie said. Martha looked at the quilt in her lap. "I know. Found it in the chest." "You went through her things." "I did." Ellie's jaw tightened. Her fingers gripped the railing until her knuckles went white. "She was making it for Sammy," she said. "For his birthday." Martha stopped stitching. "When's his birthday? October?" Ellie's voice flattened. She didn't finish it. And the wind picked up, rustling the grass beyond the yard. A hawk circled high above the ridge, riding the thermals. "Reckon I ain't much good at quiltin'," Martha said. She held up the corner she had been working on. "Your ma's stitches are real fine. Mine look like a drunk chicken walked across the cloth." Ellie stared at the crooked stitches. Her lips pressed together. Something moved behind her eyes, not quite a smile, but close. "That ain't how you do the corner," she said. "No." Ellie stepped closer, looked down at the quilt. Her small hand reached out, touched the edge of an unfinished square. "You gotta fold it under first," she said. "Like this." She took the fabric, turned the edge, creased it sharp with her thumbnail. "Then you stitch through both layers. Ma showed me." Martha watched. The girl's fingers moved quick and certain muscle memory, learned young, not forgotten. "Show me again," Martha said. Ellie hesitated. Her hand hovered over the quilt. Then she sat down. Not close a full arm's length away, but on the same step, facing the same direction, looking at the same work. "Gimme the needle," she said. Martha handed it over. Ellie worked in silence. Her stitches were not as fine as her mother's, but they were better than Martha's. Straighter, more confident. She finished one corner, started the next. "Ma used to let me help," Ellie said. Her voice was quieter now, younger. "On the easy parts, the straight lines, you're good at it." She was better. Martha did not argue. She watched Ellie's hands move, watched the pattern take shape under the small fingers. "What else did she teach you?" Martha asked. Ellie's needle paused. She looked out at the yard, at the mountains beyond, at the sky turning gold with the lowering sun. "How to make biscuits," she said. "How to braid hair. How to sing Sammy to sleep when he had bad dreams." "Do you still do that? Sing him to sleep?" "Sometimes." Ellie's voice dropped. "He still has bad dreams. Most nights." Martha nodded. She did not ask what the dreams were about, Shum. She did not need to. They worked together as the days passed. Each afternoon, when the chores were done, they would sit on the porch with the quilt spread between them. Ellie finished 2 more corners. Martha watched, then tried again herself. Her stitches improved not much, but enough. "Still looks like a drunk chicken," Ellie said one evening. "A sober chicken, maybe," Martha replied. Ellie's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Almost. Nathan saw them from the ridge. He had been riding the fence line, checking for breaks where the cattle might push through. The work took most of each day, miles of barbed wire, posts rotted or leaning, sections where the summer storms had torn everything down and he had not had time to rebuild. But now, coming back down the slope, he stopped. Two figures on the porch, sitting close together, bent over something in their laps. He pulled the reins. The horse halted, snorting at the sudden stop. Martha and Ellie, working on something together. He could not see what, not from this distance, but he could see the way they sat close, heads tilted toward each other, hands moving in the same rhythm. Ellie had not sat that close to anyone since Sarah. Nathan's throat tightened. He swallowed against it. He clicked his tongue, let the horse walk on, took his time coming down the hill, gave them space. When he reached the yard, he did not go to the porch. He led the horse to the barn, unsaddled it, brushed it down, filled the water trough. He moved slow, deliberate, stretching every task. The sun touched the ridgeline. Shadows stretched long across the grass. Nathan walked to the house, stopped at the bottom of the porch steps. Martha looked up. Ellie did not. The quilt lay across both their laps now, the unfinished edge smaller than before. Sarah's quilt. The one she had been making for Sammy's 5th birthday. The one she had never finished. Nathan's chest ached. "Ellie's teaching me," Martha said. "I'm not much good." "She's real bad," Ellie agreed, but there was no meanness in her voice. Just fact. Nathan climbed the steps. He did not speak, did not know what to say. He walked past them, into the house, through the parlor to the rocking chair by the cold stove. He sat down. The chair creaked beneath his weight. A moment later, the front door opened. Sammy ran in, carrying something cupped in his hands, the yellow chick from the yard. The boy climbed into Nathan's lap without asking, curled against his father's chest. The chick peeped softly, trapped between them. Nathan put one arm around his son. The boy's hair smelled of dust and sunshine. Through the window, he could see Martha and Ellie still working on the porch, their heads bent together, their hands moving. The light turned gold, then amber, then the deep red of dying day. Nathan closed his eyes. Sammy's weight settled warm against him. The chick quieted. The rocking chair creaked once, twice, then stilled. For the first time in 2 years, the silence in the house did not feel empty. Later that night, after the children had gone to bed, Martha stepped onto the porch. The moon was full, casting the yard in silver light. The mountains rose black against the stars. She stood at the railing, breathing the cool air. Her hands ached from the day's work. Her back was stiff, but something in her chest had loosened, just a little. The front door opened behind her. Nathan stepped out. He did not stand close, did not speak at first. They stood side by side, looking at the same sky. "Ellie talked today," he said finally. "More than she has in months. She taught me about corners." Nathan made a sound, not quite a laugh, but close. "She used to help Sarah. They'd sit for hours, working on those quilts. She remembers. She remembers everything." His voice roughened. "That's the problem," Martha did not answer. Some things did not need answers. The wind stirred the grass. An owl called from somewhere in the pines. "I got a letter today," Nathan said. "When I went to check the north fence, Tom Miller brought it up from town." Martha's hands tightened on the railing. "From who?" Nathan reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded paper, held it out to her. Martha took it, unfolded it. The handwriting was rough, barely legible. The ink smeared in places. But the signature at the bottom was clear. Silas Hollis. The paper shook in Martha's hands. She read the words once, then again. The letters blurred, sharpened, blurred again. "Martha, you belong to me. Always have. That Mountainman paid for a wife, but he ain't paid enough. I need $200 by month's end, or I'm coming to fetch you back. Don't matter what you think you got up there. You're still my daughter, my property. The law's on my side. Your father, Silas Hollis." Martha's stomach turned. The sour taste of bile rose in her throat. She swallowed it down. "What's it say?" Nathan asked. She handed him the letter. Her fingers had gone numb. Nathan read in silence. His jaw tightened. A muscle jumped beneath his ear. When he finished, he folded the paper once, twice, and slipped it into his shirt pocket. "He can't do that," Martha said. Her voice came out thin, wrong. "He sold me. You paid him. He can't. He thinks he can." The law. "Out here?" Nathan shook his head. "Nearest judge is 3 days' ride. Judge is 3. And your pa knows it." The wind picked up. Martha's dress pressed against her legs. She gripped the porch railing, felt the rough wood bite into her palms. "He'll come," she said. "If you don't pay, he'll come. Let him." Martha looked at Nathan. His face was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that came before a storm broke. "I ain't paying him another cent," Nathan said. "And I ain't letting him take you. He's my father. He sold you like livestock. That ain't a father." Martha flinched. The truth of it hit harder than she expected. She turned away, looked out at the dark valley. The moon hung low over the ridge, casting long shadows across the grass. Somewhere in the pines, an owl called. Another answered. "What if he brings men?" she asked. "Then I'll deal with men." "Nathan." "Tom Miller knows what's happening," Nathan said. "I told him when he brought the letter. He'll spread the word to the Carsons and the others. Folks out here look after each other." Martha's throat tightened. She had never had that. People looking after her. People who would stand up when trouble came. "This is your home now," Nathan said. His voice was quiet but firm. "If you want it." Martha looked at him. At this man who had chosen her when no one else would. Who had given her space when she needed it and stood beside her when it mattered. "I want it," she said. Nathan nodded. Just once. Then he turned and went inside, leaving her alone on the porch with the wind and the stars. Martha could not sleep. She lay on the thin mattress, Sarah's quilt pulled to her chin, staring at the ceiling. The letter's words played over and over in her mind. "You belong to me. My property. The law's on my side." her father's voice, sneering and certain. The same voice that had told her she was worthless, that no man would ever want her, that she should be grateful for whatever scraps came her way. She had believed him. For 26 years, she had believed him. And now a sound, soft, from the hallway. Martha sat up. The quilt fell away. She listened. The house settled around her, boards creaking, wind sighing through the gaps in the walls. Then there, again, the whisper of bare feet on wood. Martha rose, crossed to the doorway, peered into the dark hall. A small shape stood at the bottom of the stairs. White nightgown, brown hair loose around thin shoulders. Ellie. The girl did not move. Her face was pale in the moonlight that filtered through the window at the end of the hall. "What are you doing up?" Martha asked. "I heard you talkin'." Ellie's voice was barely a whisper. "On the porch, with Pa." Martha's chest tightened. How much had she heard come here? Martha said. Ellie hesitated. Then she walked forward, slow, her bare feet silent on the floorboards. She stopped an arm's length away. "That letter?" Ellie said. "It was from your pa, wasn't it?" "Yes." "He's coming to take you away." Martha knelt down. The floor was cold against her knees. She brought herself to Ellie's level, looked into the girl's dark eyes. "He wants to," Martha said. "But wanting and doing are two different things." Ellie's lower lip trembled. "Just a fraction. Just enough to see." "Everybody leaves," she whispered. "Ma left. And now you're going to leave too. Ellie, you are. I know you are. Everybody does." Martha reached out. Her hand hovered in the air between them. She did not know if the touch would be welcome, did not know if she had earned it yet. Then Ellie moved. The girl stepped forward, pressed her face into Martha's shoulder, wrapped her thin arms around Martha's neck. She did not cry, did not make a sound, just held on, tight, desperate, like she was gripping a rope over a cliff. Martha's arms closed around her. She felt the small body trembling against her own, felt the bones beneath the thin nightgown, the hammering of a child's heart. "I ain't going nowhere," Martha whispered. "You hear me? I ain't going nowhere." Ellie did not answer, but her grip tightened. They stayed that way for a long time. The moonlight shifted on the floor. The wind died down. Somewhere upstairs, Sammy murmured in his sleep. When Ellie finally pulled back, her eyes were red but dry. "Promise," she said. Martha looked at this child who had lost too much, who had learned not to trust, who had built walls around her heart to keep the hurt out. "Promise," Martha said. Ellie nodded. Once. Then she turned and walked back up the stairs, her white nightgown disappearing into the shadows at the top. Martha stayed on her knees in the hallway. The cold had seeped into her bones. Her joints ached, but she did not move. She had made a promise to a child who had been broken by loss, to a child who did not believe in promises anymore. Now she had to keep it. The days passed. The letter sat in Nathan's pocket, unmentioned but present, a weight that shifted everything. Martha worked harder, rose earlier, stayed up later. She scrubbed the house until the boards gleamed. She mended the clothes that had piled in corners. She cooked meals that grew more ambitious biscuits one day, stew the next. A pie made from the wild apples she found in the abandoned orchard behind the barn. The children watched her. Sammy had begun to shadow her around the yard, chattering about the chicks and the horses and the shapes he saw in the clouds. Ellie still kept her distance during the day, but each evening she appeared on the porch with the quilt, and they worked together until the light failed. The unfinished section grew smaller. Only one row remained now, and Nathan watched too. From the barn, from the porch, from the window of his room, when he thought she could not see. But he did not speak of the letter, did not speak of her father, did not speak of what would happen when Silas Hollis came. 3 weeks after the letter arrived, Martha woke to the sound of thunder. She sat up. The room was dark. Rain hammered against the window, hard and relentless. Lightning flashed, turning the world white for an instant. Then a scream. Sammy. Martha threw off the quilt and ran. The hallway was dark. Lightning flashed through the window, turning everything white, then black again. Martha's bare feet slapped against the floorboards as she ran. Another scream. Higher this time. Sammy's voice cracking with terror. She took the stairs 2 at a time, hands sliding along the banister, splinters catching her palm. The children's room was at the end of the hall. The door stood open. Lightning again. In the flash, she saw them. Sammy pressed against the headboard, knees pulled to his chest, hands over his ears. Ellie beside him, one arm around his shoulders, her face pale and strained. "It's gonna hit us," Sammy wailed. "It's gonna hit the house." Martha crossed the room, knelt beside the bed, reached for the boy. "It's just thunder," she said. "Just noise. Can't hurt you." Ma said that too. Sammy's voice rose to a shriek. She said it couldn't hurt, and then she got sick, and she died, and everybody dies, and thunder cracked. The whole house shook. Sammy screamed again, high and wordless, and buried his face in Ellie's nightgown. Martha looked at Ellie. The girl's jaw was tight, her eyes were wet, but she held her brother, rocked him gently, the way she must have done 100 times before. "Where's your pa?" Martha asked. "Out with the cattle," Ellie said. "He went before dark, said a storm was coming and he needed to move them to the low pasture." Martha's stomach dropped. Nathan was out there. In this. A sound cut through the rain, not thunder. Something sharper. A crack of wood. A crash. Then a horse's scream. Martha ran to the window, pressed her face against the glass. Rain sheeted down, blurring everything. But she could see the barn. The door hung crooked on its hinges. And in the yard, a shape, moving fast. A horse, running wild. Mane streaming. Hooves throwing mud. Penny, the old gray mare. Sammy's horse. Penny. Sammy scrambled off the bed, pushed past Martha, pressed his face to the window. She got out. "She's scared she's gonna run away." "Stay here," Martha said. She turned to Ellie. "Keep him in this room. Don't let him follow me." Ellie grabbed Sammy's arm, pulled him back from the window. The boy fought her, but she held tight. "Get Penny," Sammy cried. "Please get her." Martha did not answer. She turned but ran down the stairs, through the parlor, grabbed the rope coiled on the porch railing, and plunged out the front door into the storm. The rain hit her like a wall, cold and hard, driving into her face, soaking through her nightgown in seconds. Her feet sank into mud. She could not see more than 10 feet ahead. Lightning split the sky. In the flash, she saw Penny 50 yards out, running toward the open field, toward the ridge, toward the dark mountains, where she would be lost forever. Martha ran. The mud sucked at her feet. She stumbled, caught herself, kept going. Her nightgown clung to her legs, heavy and cold. Rain ran into her eyes, her mouth, her nose. She could not breathe, could not see, but she ran. Penny's gray shape flickered in and out of the darkness ahead. The horse was fast, faster than Martha could ever hope to match. But Penny was old and scared and running blind. She would tire. She had to tire. Martha's foot caught on something, a root, a rock. She did not know, and she went down. The mud rose up to meet her. She hit face first, the impact driving the air from her lungs. Cold seeped through her nightgown, through her skin, into her bones. Mud filled her mouth, her nose. She gagged, spat, tried to push herself up. Her arms gave out. She collapsed again. The rain pounded her back. Thunder rolled overhead. She lay in the mud, tasting dirt and rain, feeling the cold seep deeper. And for one terrible moment she thought, "This is it. This is where I stop." She was nothing, nobody. A woman so worthless her own father had sold her. A woman so plain no man had ever wanted her. A woman who could not even catch a frightened horse in the dark. Her face pressed into the mud. Her nightgown was ruined. Her hair hung in filthy ropes. She looked like something dragged from a ditch. And she could not get up. Then she heard it. "Martha." A small voice, cutting through the storm. She lifted her head, blinked mud from her eyes. Ellie stood 10 feet away, barefoot, nightgown plastered to her thin body, hair streaming water down her face. She clutched the rope Martha had dropped. She must have grabbed it when Martha fell. "Get up," Ellie shouted. "She's turning pennies, turning back." Martha pushed. Her arms screamed. Her muscles burned. But she got her knees under her. Then her feet. She stood, swaying, covered in mud from face to hem. "I told you to stay inside," Martha gasped. "Sammy's hiding under the bed." Ellie shot back. "He's scared, but he's safe. Now move." Ellie was already running, not toward the ridge, but cutting left, toward the far edge of the pasture. Martha followed, legs heavy, lungs aching. Penny had turned. The horse was circling now, confused, looking for shelter, for something familiar. Her hooves churned the mud. Her eyes rolled white with fear. "Cut her off," Ellie yelled. "Don't let her go toward the trees." Martha veered right. Her feet slipped. She went down again, not all the way this time. Just to one knee, then pushed up and kept moving. The mud coated her hands, her arms, her face. She could taste it in her teeth. It was in her ears, her hair, ground into every inch of her skin. She had never felt so low, so filthy, so stripped of every pretense she had ever held about herself. And she kept moving anyway. Penny saw her. The horse shied, started to bolt. "Easy," Martha called. Her voice came out ragged, broken. "Easy, girl. Ain't nobody gonna hurt you." The horse stopped, stood trembling, rain streaming down her sides, nostrils flaring. Ellie appeared on the other side. She moved slow, the rope loose in her hands. Her feet squelched in the mud. She was shaking from cold or fear. Martha could not tell. "That's it," Ellie whispered. "That's a good girl. You remember me. Don't you? You remember?" Penny's ears swiveled. Her head turned toward the familiar voice. Ellie took another step. Another. She reached out her hand. Penny did not bolt. The rope went over the mare's neck. Ellie pulled it tight, looped it once, twice. Her small hands worked fast. Sure. The way they had worked on the quilt. "Got her," Ellie breathed. Martha bent double, hands on her knees, gasping. The rain had not stopped. The thunder still rolled. But Penny was caught. They led her back to the barn. It took forever, Penny balking at every flash of lightning. Ellie talking low and steady. Martha holding the rope when her arms felt like they would fall off. The mud pulled at their feet with every step. The wind tore at their soaked nightgowns. The barn door hung crooked, but the structure still stood. They pushed inside, out of the rain. The smell of hay and manure wrapped around them, warm compared to the cold outside. Martha's legs gave out. She sat down hard on a hay bale, nightgown dripping, mud cracking on her skin as it dried. Her hands shook. Her whole body shook. She looked down at herself filthy, soaked, covered in muck from the yard, and something between a laugh and a sob pushed up from her chest. She had never looked worse in her life, never felt more ridiculous, never been more completely stripped of any dignity she had ever possessed. Ellie led Penny into her stall, closed the gate, leaned against it, panting. Then she turned, looked at Martha, and laughed. It started small, a huff of breath, a twitch at the corner of her mouth. Then it grew, spilling out of her, high and bright and real. She laughed at Martha's mud-caked face, at her own soaked nightgown, at the absurdity of two females in the middle of a storm, covered in filth, holding a terrified horse. Martha stared. Then she felt it rising in her own chest, the same pressure, the same release. She laughed too. The sound tore out of her, raw and rough, and nothing like a lady should sound. They laughed until they were gasping, until tears ran down their cheeks and mixed with the rain and the mud, until the barn echoed with it. The door banged open. Nathan stood in the entrance, soaked to the bone, hat gone, face wild. His eyes swept the barn, found Martha on the hay bale, found Ellie by the stall, found Penny safe inside. He did not speak. His chest heaved, water dripped from his chin. Then Sammy pushed past him. The boy had followed after, all barefoot, nightshirt soaked, face streaked with tears. He ran across the barn and threw himself at Penny's stall. His small arms reached through the slats, wrapped around the mare's neck. "You didn't run away," he whispered. "You didn't leave." Nathan walked forward, slow. His boots squelched with every step. He stopped in front of Martha. She looked up at him. Mud in her hair, mud on her face, nightgown ruined. Every inch of her filthy and exhausted and stripped of anything she might have once tried to pretend she was. "We got her," Martha said. Nathan looked at her, at Ellie, at Sammy clinging to the horse. His hand rose, trembling. He reached into his shirt, pulled out his oilskin coat. He must have been wearing it under his soaked outer layer. He draped it over Martha's shoulders. The weight settled on her, warm from his body, smelling of leather and horse and him. "I know," he said. His voice cracked on the words. "I know you did." Ellie came to stand beside Martha. Sammy stayed with Penny, murmuring into her mane. The rain drummed on the barn roof. The thunder rolled farther away. Moving on, Nathan looked at the three of them, his children, and this woman who had run into a storm for a horse she did not own, who had fallen in the mud and gotten up again, who had done what needed doing without being asked. His throat worked. He opened his mouth to speak. The barn door crashed open again. A figure stood in the entrance. Not Nathan, he was here. Someone else. Broader, shorter, a hat pulled low against the rain. "Well," the figure said. "Ain't this a pretty picture?" Martha's blood went cold. She knew that voice. Silas Hollis stepped into the barn, water streaming from his coat, and smiled. Silas Hollis looked older than Martha remembered. The weeks since she had left had carved new lines into his face. His coat hung loose on his shoulders. His boots were caked with mud from the ride. But his eyes were the same. Hard, calculating. The eyes of a man who saw everything as transaction. "Pa," Martha said. The word came out flat, empty. "Get your things." Silas stepped further into the barn. Water dripped from his hat brim onto the straw. "We're leaving." Nathan moved. Not fast, not aggressive, just shifted his weight, put himself between Silas and Martha. His hands hung loose at his sides. "She ain't going anywhere," Nathan said. Silas's lip curled. "This ain't your business, mister. She's my daughter. My blood. The law says, the law ain't here." Nathan's voice was quiet. "Just us." Silas's jaw tightened. He looked past Nathan to Martha, still sitting on the hay bale, still wrapped in Nathan's oilskin coat, still covered in mud from face to feet. "Look at you," Silas said. "Crawling in the dirt like an animal. This what you wanted, this what you left home for." Martha did not answer. Her hands gripped the edge of the hay bale. Her knuckles ached. "I gave you a roof," Silas continued. "Fed you, clothed you. And this is how you repay me, running off with the first man who'd have you. You sold me." Martha's voice came out low, rough, like a mule at auction. "I found you a husband. That's what fathers do." You took his money and laughed. Silas's face darkened. "I did what I had to. You think it's cheap raising 3 girls? You think your ma's doctor bills paid themselves. You don't know nothing about sacrifice. girl. Nothing about what I gave up. Martha stood. The oilskin coat slipped from her shoulders. She stood in her ruined nightgown, mud cracking on her skin, hair matted and dripping. What did you give up, Pa? Her voice did not shake. Your pride, your honor. You sold all three of us, Charlotte to a drunk, to Rosemary to a man twice her age, me to a stranger, and you took every cent you could get. I did what was necessary. You did what was easy. The words hung in the air. Silas's mouth opened, closed. His face went red, then pale. A sound from outside. Hooves in mud. Voices. Nathan turned toward the barn door. Martha followed his gaze. 3 figures appeared in the entrance, rain dripping from their hats and coats. Tom Miller, the neighbor who had brought the letter. Old Mr. Carson, leaning on his cane, his white hair plastered to his skull. And behind them, Mrs. Carson, wrapped in an oilskin, her face set and determined. Saw a strange horse tied up by the road, Tom Miller said. He looked at Silas, then at Nathan, then at Martha. Figured we'd check on you folks after the storm, make sure everyone was all right. Silas's eyes narrowed. This ain't none of your concern. Neighbor's business is everyone's concern out here, old Mr. Carson said. His voice was thin but steady. That's how we do things. More sounds from outside, more voices. Martha saw other shapes moving through the rain, the Hendricks family from the next valley. The widow Patterson who lived alone up the ridge, young Samuel Greer who worked the mill in town. Tom Miller had spread the word, just like Nathan had asked him to. Silas looked around the barn, at the faces appearing in the doorway, at the people who had ridden through a storm to stand in a stranger's barn. You think this changes anything, he said. His voice had lost some of its edge. She's still my daughter, still my property. She ain't property. The voice was small, clear. Everyone turned. Ellie stepped forward. She was still soaked, still barefoot, still covered in mud. But she walked until she stood directly in front of Silas, looking up at him without flinching. She's ours, Ellie said. You can't have her. Silas blinked. What? She ran into the storm for our horse. She fell in the mud and got up again. She makes us breakfast and fixes our clothes, and she's teaching me to quilt like Ma used to. Sammy appeared behind his sister. His small hand found hers. He did not speak, just stood there, wet and shivering, holding on. Silas looked at the children, at their mud-streaked faces, at their bare feet, at the way they stood in front of Martha like a wall. Something shifted in his face. The hardness cracked, just for an instant. Martha saw it, that flicker, that moment of doubt, and she understood something she had never understood before. Her father was afraid. Not of Nathan, not of the neighbors, not of anything outside himself. He was afraid of being seen, of being known for what he really was, of standing in a room full of strangers and having no one, not one single person, take his side. She ain't your ma, Silas said to Ellie. But his voice had lost its certainty. We know, Ellie said. She ain't trying to be. She's just trying to be here. Silence. The rain had slowed. Thunder rumbled in the distance, moving away. Water dripped from the barn roof, steady and slow. Silas looked at Martha. really looked. At the woman who had crawled through mud for a horse that was not hers, who had stood in a storm for children that were not her blood, who had been sold like property and had chosen to stay anyway. His daughter, his flesh, and he did not know her at all. $200, he said, but his voice was hollow, empty. You owe me $200. Nathan reached into his pocket, pulled out a fold of bills, counted them, held them out. $43, Nathan said. All I got. Take it and go. Silas stared at the money. His hand twitched. He did not reach for it. That ain't, it's what you're getting. Nathan's voice was flat. And you won't get it by threat. You'll get it because your daughter asked me to pay it. Because she still thinks there's something in you worth saving. Martha's breath caught. She had not asked. She had not said anything about paying. But Nathan knew. He had seen her face when she read the letter. He had seen the way she flinched at her father's name. Silas's hand trembled. He looked at the money, at Nathan, at the children still standing guard us, at the neighbors filling the barn doorway, at Martha. You really want to stay here? His voice cracked. In this dirt, with these people? Yes. Martha's answer came without hesitation. I do. Something broke in Silas's face. Not anger, not defeat. Something older, deeper. For just a moment, Martha saw the man her father might have been. The man who had married her mother 30 years ago. The man who had held his daughters when they were babies, before the debts and the bitterness and the long, slow slide into whatever he had become. That man was still in there. Buried. Forgotten. But still there. Silas reached out, took the $43, folded them into his pocket. Fine, he said. His voice was barely a whisper. Keep her. He turned toward the door. The neighbors parted to let him through. No one spoke. No one moved to stop him. At the threshold, he paused, did not turn around. Your ma, he said. She would have liked to see you settled. She worried about you. More than the others. Martha's throat tightened. She's been gone 10 years. Pa. I know. Silas's hand gripped the door frame. I know how long she's been gone. He stood there for a long moment. The rain had stopped. The clouds were breaking apart overhead, stars appearing in the gaps. Then he walked out into the night, climbed onto his horse, rode away without looking back. Martha watched him go. The hoofbeats faded. The darkness swallowed him whole. Nathan's hand touched her shoulder, warm, solid. He won't come back, Nathan said. I know. Ellie and Sammy pressed against her sides. Sammy's small hand found hers. Ellie leaned her head against Martha's arm. The neighbors began to disperse, heading back to their own homes, their own families, their own lives. Tom Miller tipped his hat. Old Mr. Carson nodded. Mrs. Carson squeezed Martha's hand as she passed. They stood in the barn doorway, the four of them, watching the storm clouds scatter and the stars emerge. The air smelled of rain and wet earth. Martha looked down at the children, at their upturned faces, at the trust that had not been there a month ago. Can we go inside now? Sammy asked. I'm cold. Martha laughed. A real laugh, small and tired, but genuine. "Yeah," she said. "Let's go inside." They walked across the muddy yard, stepping around puddles, the children's bare feet squelching in the wet grass. The house waited for them. Windows dark but welcoming. Nathan opened the door, held it for them. The children went in first, then Martha. She paused at the threshold, turned back. Nathan stood on the porch, looking at her. His face was shadowed, but she could see his eyes, the way they held something she had not seen before. "Thank you," she said. "For the money? For all of it?" He nodded. Slow, deliberate. "This is your home," he said. "Long as you want it." Martha looked at him, at this man who had chosen her when no one else would, who had given her space when she needed it and stood beside her when it mattered, who had never once asked her to be anything other than what she was. "I want it," she said. The words hung between them, heavier than they should have been, full of meaning neither of them could quite name. Nathan stepped forward. His hand rose, hesitated. Then he reached out and brushed a streak of mud from her cheek. His fingers were rough, warm. They lingered for just a moment. "Best get the children to bed," he said. Martha nodded, turned, went inside. But she could feel his eyes on her back, all the way up the stairs. 2 months had passed since the night of the storm. The house looked different now. Curtains hung in the windows white cotton that Martha had sewn from fabric she bought in town. Flowers grew in the boxes beneath the sills, marigolds and zinnias that Ellie had planted from seeds Mrs. Carson had given her. The rocking chair on the porch sat straight, both runners repaired, the wood oiled and gleaming. The morning after Silas left, Martha had woken to find Ellie already up, sitting on the porch with the quilt in her lap. The girl had not spoken. Just handed Martha the needle and thread and waited. They had finished it together. The last row. The final stitches. The binding around the edges. Martha's work was still uneven, still rough compared to Sarah's perfect lines, but Ellie's stitches ran alongside hers, and together they made something whole. The quilt now lay on Sammy's bed, where it had been since his birthday in October. He slept under it every night, his small body curled beneath the colors his mother had chosen. The patterns 3 pairs of hands had completed. The evening was warm for late autumn. Martha stood at the stove, stirring a pot of stew. The smell filled the kitchen, beef and potatoes and wild onions she had found growing along the creek. Bread cooled on the counter, still steaming from the oven. Ellie moved around the table, setting out plates and forks and cups. Her movements were practiced now, automatic. She knew where everything belonged. This was her kitchen, too. Sammy sat on Nathan's lap by the fire, chattering about the calf that had been born that morning. His words tumbled over each other, fast and bright, the way children's words do when they have something important to share. "And it stood up all by itself," Sammy said. "On its own legs. And it was wobbly at first, but then it walked," and Ellie said, "I said it looked like you when you first learned to walk." Ellie interrupted. "All knees and no balance?" "I had balance. You fell into the pig trough." "That was one time?" Nathan laughed. A real laugh, deep and warm, that rumbled through his chest and made Sammy bounce on his knee. Martha turned from the stove to watch them. The firelight caught Nathan's face, softening the lines around his eyes, the gray at his temples. He looked younger than he had 2 months ago. They all did. "Supper's ready?" Martha said. They gathered at the table. Nathan said grace a short prayer. Simple words. The same ones he had said every night since Martha arrived. She bowed her head with the others, felt Sammy's small hand slip into hers on one side, Ellie's fingers brush her arm on the other. When the prayer ended, they ate. The conversation flowed easy talk of the cattle, the fence that needed mending, the letter Ellie wanted to write to the school teacher in town about starting lessons in the spring. No one mentioned Silas. No one needed to. He had ridden away that night and had not come back. No more letters. No more threats. Just silence and the slow passage of days and the quiet work of building something new. After supper, after the dishes were washed and the children tucked into bed, Martha stepped onto the porch. The night was clear. Stars scattered across the sky like scattered salt on a dark cloth. The moon hung low over the mountains, painting the valley silver. She stood at the railing, breathing the cool air. Her hands were rough now, rougher than they had been when she arrived. Calluses on her palms from scrubbing and chopping and hauling water, cracks in her knuckles that never quite healed. The hands of a woman who worked. She did not mind. These hands had purpose now. They belonged somewhere. The front door opened. Nathan's boots scuffed against the boards as he crossed to stand beside her. They did not speak at first, just stood side by side, looking at the same sky. Ellie asked me something today, Nathan said. Martha turned her head, waited, asked if you were going to stay. He paused. For good. What did you tell her? Told her that was up to you. Martha looked back at the stars. Her throat tightened. I ain't going anywhere, she said. Nathan nodded. His hand moved across the space between them, found hers on the railing. His fingers were warm, calloused, strong. Reckon I ain't good with words, he said. That's fine. I got plenty. He made a sound, almost a laugh. His thumb traced a slow circle on the back of her hand. I'm glad you stayed, he said. Me too. The silence stretched, comfortable, full. Sarah, Nathan said. His voice was softer now. She would have liked you. Martha's chest ached. You think so? I know so. You're different from her. But she would have seen... He stopped, swallowed. She would have seen what I see. What do you see? Nathan turned, looked at her full on, his gray eyes catching the moonlight. Someone worth choosing, he said. Martha's breath caught. Her hand tightened around his. They stood like that for a long time. The stars wheeled overhead. The wind stirred the grass and stirred. An owl called from the pines, and another answered. Then Nathan lifted her hand, brought it to his lips, pressed a kiss to her knuckles, rough and chapped and worn as if they were the most precious thing he had ever held. Martha leaned into him, rested her head against his shoulder, felt the warmth of his body, the steady beat of his heart. She did not need words. Neither did he. Morning came soft and slow. Martha woke to sunlight streaming through the window, warm on her face. She lay still for a moment, listening to the birds outside, feeling the weight of Sarah's quilt across her body. Then she rose, dressed, went downstairs, and the house was quiet. The stove was cold, but that was all right. She knew how to fix it now. She was building the fire when she heard footsteps on the stairs. Not Nathan's too light, not Sammy's too steady. Ellie appeared in the kitchen doorway. Her hair was loose, tangled from sleep. She wore her nightgown still, feet bare on the cold floor. But she was not alone. She held something in her arms. The quilt, Sammy's quilt, the one they had finished together. She carried it like something sacred, cradled against her chest. "I wanted to show you," Ellie said. Her voice was quiet. "Different." Martha straightened, wiped her hands on her apron. "Show me what—" Ellie crossed the kitchen, stopped in front of Martha, unfolded the quilt, held it up so the morning light caught the colors. "I added something," she said. "Last night, after everyone was asleep." Martha looked. At first, she saw only the familiar pattern, the log cabin squares, the dark centers, the rings of color building outward. Sarah's work, and her own work, and Ellie's work, all woven together. Then she saw it. In the corner of the last square, the very last one, the one Ellie had finished, there were letters, tiny, careful, stitched in white thread against dark fabric. S-M, in Sarah, Martha, Ellie. Martha's vision blurred. Her throat closed. "3 of us," Ellie said. Her voice wavered. "That's what I wanted it to say. 3 of us made it. So 3 of us should be on it." Martha reached out, touched the letters, felt the tiny bumps of thread beneath her fingertips. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Ellie looked up at her. Her eyes were bright, wet. "Can I call you something?" she asked. Martha's heart stopped. "What's that?" Ellie's voice dropped to a whisper, so soft Martha almost did not hear. "Ma." The word hung in the air, small, fragile, full of everything a 7-year-old girl had lost and everything she hoped to find again. Martha's chest cracked open. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She could not speak, did not trust herself to try. So she opened her arms instead. Ellie stepped forward, pressed herself against Martha's chest, wrapped her thin arms around Martha's waist, and Martha held her, held this child who was not hers by blood, but was hers by choice, held her the way a mother holds a daughter. "Yeah," Martha whispered into Ellie's hair. "Yeah, honey? You can call me that." They stood there as the fire caught and the flames rose, and the kitchen filled with warmth and light. Footsteps on the stairs. Sammy appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleep from his eyes. The yellow chick grown now into a full hen tucked under one arm. "What's happening?" he asked. "Why's everyone crying?" Ellie laughed through her tears. "We ain't crying. We're just being silly," Martha finished. She wiped her eyes, smiled at the boy. "You hungry?" "Always." Nathan appeared behind his son. He took in the scene, Martha and Ellie holding each other. The quilt spread between them. The fire crackling in the stove. His eyes moved to Martha's face. Saw the tears. Saw the smile. He did not ask. Did not need to. He just nodded. Once. Then he lifted Sammy onto his hip and carried the boy to the table. "Reckon we're having breakfast," he said. Martha laughed. A real laugh, full and warm, that filled the kitchen and spilled out the windows into the morning air. "Reckon we are," she said. She turned back to the stove. Ellie moved to set the table. Sammy chattered about his chicken and the calf and the shapes he had seen in the clouds yesterday. Outside, the sun rose higher over the mountains. The valley turned gold. The cattle called to each other across the pastures. And in the house at the base of the ridge, a family broken and mended, and made new began another day. There is something quiet that settles in the chest after a story like this. Something tender and familiar. It does not ask to be named. Many of us have stood where Martha stood, unseen for years. Overlooked. Waiting for someone to look past the surface and find something worth keeping. Some of us have been the ones who chose poorly, or who failed to see worth until it was almost too late. And perhaps a few of us know what it means to build something from broken pieces, to love children who are not our blood, to find home in the last place we expected. These are not lessons. They are just lives. Quiet, imperfect, familiar. If something in this story stayed with you, if it pressed against an old memory, or stirred something you thought you had put away, it is all right to let it rest there. You do not need to understand it. You do not need to resolve it. Some things are carried quietly, and that is enough. Thank you for staying until the end. Thank you for listening.